Hello, everyone, and welcome into this week's edition of HTFC, the home of football, here on the Hitting the Field Network. I am your host, as always, Edgar Rodriguez.
And I'm Patrick Deleon, and today we've got two very fun segments for y'all. We've got our Champions League phase recap, joined alongside Danny.
Hey, back again.
And later on, we've got our Champions League playoff round, our two-legged series. We're doing a preview on that, so it's going to be so much fun, so much to talk about, Edgar. But first, before we get started, quickly, what jersey are you wearing?
The 05-06 Arsenal home kit,
Yes.
the last season at Highbury, the best football kit in existence. I got it as a Christmas gift this past Christmas. And Patrick, you know this is my favorite shirt.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can't get any better. And behind,
Henry.
It's perfect. You went with a German club.
So first of all, I don't like Bayern at all. This is just the only team I have that plays Champions League football. I have their jersey, but my sister gave this to me when she was in Germany, and she didn't know I didn't like Bayern, so
we'll allow it.
And the scarf. So this scarf and the shirt came from Germany itself. But Lewandowski on the back, 2018-2019 home shirt. It's pretty fun and simple. And we got
Danny
Danny
B repping Real Madrid as
my
always.
Real Madrid dragon shirt.
All right. And
With that said,
we just jump right into
let's go into it. We're going to start in Germany, speaking of Stuttgart against PSG. Now, heading into this one, it was a matchup closer to the bottom of the playoff zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
We weren't really sure if these two teams were, going to go through. Of course, PSG had the boost after beating City.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Dembele, hat-trick. PSG went there, got the job done, and they are through. But, I mean, Stuttgart, a bit disappointing in this one.
They did. They had the opportunity to potentially lock in at least a playoff spot, but they just fell short. I mean, almost completely outplayed by PSG, especially at home in Stuttgart. That's just not what you want to see at home.
And this season, Danny V, we're seeing Ousmane Dembele come into life. He's already reached his, I believe, his a personal record in terms of goals a season.
Yeah.
When he was at Barca, he's already reached that mark here at PSG. So, under Luis Enrique, he's coming to life a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely do agree. I mean, PSG has had their ups and downs, especially right here in the Champions League, but at least they are showing some kind of improvement. They're showing great performance, like as we see right here, 4-1. Mm-hmm. Great performance, and the stats speak for themselves. PSG has been really performing well, especially bringing him to the stardom right here with them. So I definitely do think that this could be a lot better for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how far do we see PSG going this year?
I still don't see them going far.
No, right?
It's
I mean,
they're nothing to talk about in Champions League.
They reached the final in 2020 against Bayern.
Yes.
Bayern, of course, won that 1-0 COVID year. They made it all the way there. But usually PSG, we've said this all along, right? Usually just lackluster, and they will hit an obstacle which they won't be able to, overcome eventually.
Yeah.
But, they at least can rely on Dembele.
Of course.
They lost Marco Asensio.
Yes.
Because that deal just went through. Villa on loan until the end of the season. That's going to be interesting to see how PSG kind of maneuver their way around that.
Speaking of Aston Villa, we're going to move on to the
perfect
next
segue. I didn't even try to do that.
We got Aston Villa versus Celtic 4-2.
What a crazy game.
Huge matchup both for Aston Villa because that solidified their place in the automatic top 8 for the round of 16.
For Villa, top 8 for Emery's men. And I mean, First season back in the Champions League for Aston Villa, you would think, okay, they're good. They might be like a Brest, right? They might be in the playoff zone, but no, they forced their way into the top 8. Morgan Rogers scoring twice in the first 5 minutes.
He's having a great season.
Oh, what a player!
Season.
What a player, Morgan Rogers. And then we saw Celtic equalize. They also scored 2 back-to-back goals, 2 goals in like 3 or 2 minutes. But then Villa again finished off strong at Villa Park. We know the atmosphere that those fans create over there. And I mean, overall, pretty dominant for Villa, and they'll be happy. No playoff matches to worry about.
No. And Villa, I will be super proud of this role because they leapfrog Atalanta, which leads into the next match we have for you guys.
These games go hand in hand.
Atalanta and Barcelona up next. And that was also a really huge game. So 2-2 all. Atalanta finishing in 9th now, just below Aston Villa because they drew against Barcelona. But Barcelona solidifying their second place finish as well.
Very true. Atalanta went to Spain, of course, looking to grab the win. Barcelona, at the end of the match, we were watching it, and it almost seemed like Barca were going to get the third goal, but they just couldn't find that breakthrough pass at the end of the game. Barca did what they had to do. They already were solidified in second place. So again, they don't have to worry about it. But for Atalanta, though, they would have wanted to finish in that top 8. They were kind of sitting in that 7th, 8th spot, a place where, of course, Lille, who we'll get to a little later, ended up occupying. Yeah. But that Lille win meant that Atalanta had to win, and they did not. Barcelona stopping them from getting a top 8 spot. Danny V, do you have anything to add on Atalanta?
Atalanta should have won. Barcelona should lose every single game that they ever play.
Well, there you go. Yeah. No bias at all. But like we said, Barca through Atalanta will have to maneuver Club Brugge, which we saw City take on. Again, we'll get to that a little later. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. I think the shocking result, though, from Wednesday.
Really this was an exciting one. PSV 3, Liverpool 2. Now, granted, Liverpool, sure, they played some of the younger guys, their academy guys, to give them experience, right? But PSV still had a job to do regardless. 3-2, Ricardo Pepi, U.S. international, scoring in this matchup. Super proud of him.
There you go. It's called soccer, guys. It's called soccer.
But yes, PSV 3-2. This was a fun matchup. First half was insane.
All the goals came in the first half. Liverpool scored first to make a 1-0, then went 2-1 in the lead. But then PSV, wasted no time at all at home and had that 3-2 lead going into halftime and did not look back after that. Danny V, that means that Liverpool ended with a loss. Of course, they could have went there. If they would have gotten the win, it would have been 8-0. Do you think that hurts Liverpool at all, or will they brush aside this?
I don't think. I think it'll be easy to brush aside, considering they're still the number 1 team in the Champions League, and they got some opportunities to play like their backups and some of the younger ones. Right. So this was more like just like a testing phase, just for those new players for eventually future on, but. They wouldn't need to be worried down unless like Barca jumped them, which in that case I'm sure they would have been as mad as me.
And at one point Barca did take that 1-0, not 1-0, the first place, But again, the Barca couldn't win because with this result, Barca won, they would have finished as the top seed. Yes. That did not end up happening though. As we said, Atalanta holding Barcelona. Let's stay on the theme of Premier League clubs because City, heading into Club Brugge, we had spoken about this before. It was no guarantee that Pep's men were going to get the result here, and we saw that. Bruges scored an incredible goal right at the end of the first half to make it 1-0, but then City did what they had to do. Kovacic with a beautiful finish low and hard into the bottom corner. An own goal from Bruges made it 2-1, and then Savinho wrapped it up.
Of course, and again, I feel like we always see these two guys play each other. These two teams play each other all the time. But in this scenario, it was a must-win for Manchester City. Like, think about it. They had to leave it to the last match day against Club Brugge of all teams. Wow. They're facing a must-win situation, especially because they lost 4-2 to PSG a couple of weeks back, and that hurt them a lot.
Yep. Crazy game.
Like, they performed historically bad this season. I mean, they were finished at number 22, and of course, yes, Club Brugge, they are number 24, but still.
I was going to say.
They're on the same level at that point.
Yeah, it's like you wouldn't expect that going into the Champions League. Like, you would expect Man City to be one of the top teams, and then here they are barely scraping by number 22.
Yep, a draw wouldn't have been enough here. And these two teams, like you just rightly said there, scraping by. These are two of the bottom 3 teams of that playoff zone, and you would not have guessed that. No. Heading into this season, Man City have had their speed bumps. Somehow, they pull it out of the bag. It was the performance we expected, though, right?
True.
Most of the possession, almost 800 passes. It was a City performance in that sense. But then again, Bruges had their opportunities as well. Man City getting through. Now, another one of those shock, maybe not result, but scoreline. Lille.
6-1
offensive explosion.
Shocker.
Lille, I mean, wow. It's just 6-1 is no easy feat, especially in Champions League where it feels like everybody, especially with this new format, everybody can beat everybody, right? Lille 6-1 taking full advantage. They jump into 7th.
They jump into 7th, and that is the significance of this result.
That's they avoid the 2 extra games. They lock in that top 8 for the round of 16. Feyenoord not as lucky, unfortunately, and especially now that Santi Jimenez is leaving Feyenoord.
I was going to say.
Milan, so now they're losing their main man up top.
But then Santi Jimenez goes to Milan, and guess who Feyenoord have to play in the knockout phase? Milan. And I know that's a match you're very much looking forward to. Do you think Feyenoord can go to San Siro and fight with Milan?
It's a big loss, especially with, I think, how Milan, they're not necessarily one of the best teams in Europe right
No,
now,
no,
but
I
they're
wouldn't
still
say
having
that.
a pretty solid season.
Yeah.
But the San Siro is hard,
Yeah.
and they lost their main guy up top. It's going to be very difficult for them, I think.
Interesting dynamic there,
Yeah.
Danny V. But, Lille, again, one of those teams that you wouldn't have expected to get
kinda
into
sneak their way
7th. And
up
as a
there.
Real Madrid fan, I'm sure you would see Lille in 7th, Villa in 8th, and be like, that should have been us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't think they were going to be a star. I thought that, okay, they could be maybe in the playoff mix, maybe like at some like bottom spots, but I never expect them to be at number 7.
Top
Yeah.
8. Top 8,
Like,
and they go
It's definitely-
through.
But that's what this new format has brought us.
Right.
It's been amazing.
It's a chaotic format, and
It
I
is.
kind of love that.
It is, yeah.
I think, we've talked about this countless times, Patrick. Like, heading into this, why change it up, right? Why change the tried and tested, what has been, the format forever? But I think now, just even, not even at the end of the season, just after the group phase, I feel like everyone is on board with this new format, and that is, we're happy to say that because a lot of skepticism going in, but they have proved us wrong. The last match we're going to go in depth on is Inter Milan against Monaco. Now, of course, this result means that Inter had 7 clean sheets in
Yes.
their 8
Yeah.
group phase
Yeah.
matches. Patrick, Inter Milan, they
Their
look good.
defense have locked everything
Oh
down.
my
I didn't
goodness.
expect this to be a 3-0. I did say, I think, 1-0, 2-0?
You said 1-0, I said 2-0.
Yeah, 1-0.
Yeah.
And Inter, they came out with 3.
Yeah.
Lautaro Martinez. Sorry.
Patrick,
Excellent performance
Oh,
from him against
yeah. Monaco.
Monaco, not a bad side either.
not
a
at
sneaky
all.
side, a very
But
tricky
they
side.
couldn't even get a shot on goal.
But now
and that
they
shows you.
completely got locked out.
Yeah, and Inter, we saw them get to the final 2 years ago against City. They took them all the way, just a 1-0 loss there. But Inter Milan are always one of those strong teams. When you look at the Champions League favorites, you can't discount Inter Milan.
No. Yeah. Yeah, especially considering they made the final 2 years ago
Yeah,
now?
2 years ago.
2 years ago they did lose to Manchester City, but they've always been a good team. Always have been. Italy is definitely ruled, I think, in terms of in Europe, it's always going to be AC Milan,
Yeah.
Inter Milan. Those are the two guys that represent them the
Juve,
most.
but they haven't been
Juve,
present
but
at all
yes.
recently. Danny V, as a Real Madrid fan, because of course you talk to Champions League favorites, you're gonna have to talk about Real Madrid. Does Inter kind of like scare you a little bit as a potential opponent on the road to the final?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely do. They've been performing really well. I mean, you could see the stats for yourself. 20 shots on goal, 7 shots on goal, any total.
4 expected goals. I mean, that was as good as it gets.
Yeah.
They're performing like way beyond even what I expected. Like, they're performing amazingly, and I'm a little bit scared to play against them.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? I don't think I've ever seen an expected goals number that high before. 3.89.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's
I've always
crazy.
seen numbers
That-
hover around like 2.75 or
Right.
something, but 3.89?
Right.
Wow.
3.89 in a 3-0 win. Expected goals are one of those stats that gets kind of like, trashed. But
Yeah.
I look into it. I think it's significant. I know you're one of those
Yeah.
skeptics for expected goals, but I love this stat. I don't know why.
Of course.
I don't know why. Let's, Patrick, why don't you start with these games? Of course,
Yeah.
there were so many. We can't go in depth on
Of
all
course,
of them.
around the league, I mean,
Yes.
your Arsenal, of course, 2-1
Vamos.
against Girona.
2-1.
Atleti, of course, dominating
Griezmann.
away in
Oh.
Salzburg. Salzburg having a poor Champions League season.
Yeah,
Same
really
with
poor.
Leipzig, their
They went
sister
to
club.
Austria and lost.
To Sturm Graz. Bologna Sporting drawing 1-1. Young Boys losing at home 1-0.
To Red Star.
Red Star, yes. I
Yeah.
can't pronounce their full name for the life of me. Benfica, Juve, 2-0 away
And
win.
we looked at this game beforehand and we were like, this is going to be one of those hard to call ones.
Yeah.
Juve at home could not pick up the 3 points. Again, another team that misses out on the top 8. Out of all these results, Danny V, does one stand out to you?
Not too much. I mean, some matches that you could expect. Like, of course, we all thought Atletico was going to beat
Yeah,
Salzburg.
big
we all
win there.
thought
Yeah.
Arsenal was
Yes.
going to beat Girona.
Waneri. Did you see
Yeah.
Waneri's goal?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that was a
beautiful.
great goal.
Beautiful. We have found our new star boy. Haaland has done it
boy.
again.
Here we go.
He
Here
scored
we go.
against City as
Here
well.
we go.
Oh.
Who was it the first time? Oh my
What?
God. There's been so many Arsenal players.
Don't
I
hate.
feel like- I'm
Don't
hating.
hate.
I'm hating.
Don't
There's
hate.
been
We
so
have the
many
best academy in England, at least, and one of the best.
I'll leave you
in
at
Europe.
that. All right. Unfortunately, since I'm repping Bayern today, I'm going to talk about a little bit
Hey,
Bayern.
Bratislava.
Of course, getting the job done against Bratislava.
Hey, but no
3-1.
clean sheet? I mean,
no
come
clean
on.
sheet.
Come
But I
on.
mean,
It's a
Bayern
result.
also
It's a
kind
result.
of underperforming this year a little bit.
Yeah,
by
true,
the way.
true.
Dinamo Zagreb, Milan.
Oh, that's
2-1.
a
Huge
big
win at
result for
home.
Zagreb.
Yes.
Yes.
And then Real Madrid, of course. Danny.
Real Madrid. We have 3 Madrid fans in the room at the moment, and I think they all enjoyed Rodrigo's brace. Of course, Jude Bellingham as well, getting a goal. Dortmund 3-1 against Shakhtar Donetsk, and Leverkusen winning out against Sparta Prague 2-0. But that about wraps it up for segment 1. Danny V, thank you so much for joining us again. Good luck to Real Madrid. Of course, Manchester City in the knockout round.
Quick thoughts on that matchup, actually.
Yeah, before we go.
I am feeling both hopeful and worried because, yes, this is Man City, historical great team, and this would be like a match you would expect like the final of the Champions League for, but for it to be like the first round
in this tournament,
it should be a fun matchup. I do hope the Real Madrid wins this one, and I do expect them to win. So definitely, Real Madrid, let's do this.
Okay, well, stay tuned, everyone, because in segment 2, we'll be looking at the biggest knockout matches to look forward to. Stay tuned.
Hello. So I guess the crew's getting ready for the next segment on one of our amazing shows. I'm Nick Cohen, host of season 20 of Hitting the Field, and let me tell you about those amazing shows. On behalf of HTF, we hope you're enjoying today's content, but I'm here to tell you about everything else we offer here at the network. Mondays at 4, HTF Bets goes live for season 10 with 3 gamblers that, although it may not always seem like it, are here to help us all earn a little bit of extra money while we watch sports. Diego Ortiz, Tyler Brownrigg, and Andrew Gregg's ball knowledge and fun personalities make this show a fan favorite. On Tuesdays, you all loved it, so we brought it back for season 2. It's Girls Got Game, hosted by Frankie Noble, a show blending women in sports, the biggest sports news stories, and creative segments that make for a fun and engaging show. Next is everyone's favorite sports podcast, The Combine, hosted by who other than Ty Patton, an easygoing, conversational, and technical podcast dropping Wednesdays, also on Spotify at The Combine. Then tune in Thursdays at noon for the network's main show, season 20 of Hitting the Field, hosted by me. Here, we'll cover any sport, any topic, any story, no matter how obscure. We love some football, basketball, hockey, F1. We also cover baseball, soccer, and we even have to show the UFC love sometimes. Penultimately, TGIF, because Friday is nighttime, hosted by Kathleen Moore and Matthew Bracker. Season 8 of Nighttime is where you'll turn to for all things March Madness, UCF sports, and other collegiate events. We're ending with something brand new. HTFN has never had 6 shows running at once. Also filmed in our new podcast studio is HTFC, hosted by Edgar Rodriguez and Patrick Deleon. Football, or soccer in America, is the most popular sport in the world. Across multiple leagues and cups, soccer is a year-round sport, and HTFC is your new source to stay updated. Also on Spotify, by the way, at HTFC. Outside of our 6-show roster, be sure to tune in to our other content, such as the Studio Days vlog, run by our vlog squad of Brianna St. Jean, Michaela Croker, Ashley Rowe, and Ben Huber. Make sure to follow us on our social medias like Instagram, Facebook, and X to stay updated on all HTFN news. Remember to subscribe right here on YouTube, leave a like and comment. And with that, I think we're ready for your next segment. I'm Nick Cohen. Thank you for your continued support, and back to your regularly scheduled programming.
And just like that, we are back for segment 2 of HTFC, the 3rd edition, Patrick. It's flying by. We're here to talk knockout preview and making his HTFC debut, Juan Reyes. Welcome to the show, another Real Madrid fan. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys so much for having me. And yeah, I'm also representing Real Madrid.
There you go. There you go. So let's get right into it. Why don't we? The first knockout preview match that we have is, of course, Juve against PSV Eindhoven. Juve, again, I mean, just having one of those lackluster seasons, 3-2 in terms of group phase. PSV, outperforming them. One of those hard ones to call.
Yeah, and I think this is something that we spoke about a lot earlier today. This is going to be an exciting match, at least for me personally.
I think so, yeah.
There's a lot of interesting storylines for me because if you think about it, Juventus, they've got Weston McKennie and Tim Weah, 2 Americans. PSV, they have 4 in Dest, Tillman, Pepe, and Ledesma. So, unfortunately, that means some of these guys are going to go home. I'd like to see more Americans stay in the Champions League and go far, but this is just how the game works, right?
Yeah.
But if I were to predict something from this game, it's so hard to tell. First leg in Italy.
Yeah,
I mean, but Juve haven't been all that great in Champions League this year. So I'm going to have to put my money on PSV for this one, to be honest with you.
And Juan, I mean, PSV, coming off of that win against Liverpool, they're going to be confident in themselves. Juve haven't been all that great, so...
I personally feel like it's going to be a David Goliath situation.
Okay.
Because, Juventus, like historically, it has been like, it's one of like the biggest teams in Italy.
Of course.
It has like done good in like previous Champions Leagues, and like PSV not as much. But based on like recent stuff, PSV has been doing like some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So I definitely it's gonna be like a David Goliath situation, and PSV is gonna come with a surprise.
I think so.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, Juve coming into this, just one win in their last 5 group phase matches. Of course, losing out to Benfica, and again, PSV. It's kind of like the opposite, right? They got into those seeded positions in terms of the playoff zone. Beating Liverpool, that is as good as it can get, right? When you're, ending the group phase, right? Because everyone wants to get into the top 8, but of course those spots are limited, right?
Yeah.
So, Patrick, do you agree? Do you think PSV is going to come out on top?
I think so, because I think they have more momentum, especially yes, Liverpool, like we said, it wasn't their main guys starting, but I think it's still mentally it's still a huge confidence because we still beat Liverpool, who finished at the top of the table regardless. Juventus, they're below us, so surely that means we're more than capable of taking this in 2 games, But two-legged ties are tricky sometimes.
Absolutely.
So we'll just have to see how they play out both away and at home.
Very true. Of course, like we said, the first leg is in Italy, so Juve, that's a big one to start, right? Because you don't want to go to PSV, you don't want to go to the Netherlands down by a goal or 2, right? That would be the worst situation for the Bianconeri. Let's move to the big one, right? And we put it second because we had to build up to it. Another season and another Manchester City Real Madrid matchup. Brian is looking forward to it over at the control desk. Patrick, I mean, this is Manchester City Real Madrid, but at the same time, they're not having their best seasons. Anyway,
I think it's an interesting one. I'm gonna assume maybe you agree that Real Madrid haven't been at their best this Champions League campaign. Like at least from years past, they're not. Because I've said this so many times, Champions League is it is Real Madrid, and Real Madrid, finishing so low in my opinion than what we're used to seeing them, right? Same with Manchester City. They're both
even
two
worse.
Teams that are in awkward points right now. But the thing is, we have seen Real Madrid come alive more recently than Manchester City, I think. So I would say Real Madrid have more of the momentum heading into this matchup.
I think Real Madrid come in as favorites.
I feel like we're going through a generational, like you mentioned before, in previous years, Real Madrid. I feel like right now, Real Madrid has a lot of youngsters in their squad. One notorious one that I'm a fan of personally is 18-year-old Edgar from Brazil.
Edgar. Interesting.
But it's the opposite side over at City right now.
Yeah, they're an aging squad.
They're an aging squad. They're getting phased out slowly. They're trying to obviously slowly rebuild and bring in those reinforcements that we've seen in the past couple of weeks. But I have to give the edge to Real Madrid on this.
I think so.
Personally.
I think so. Although, like we talked about, Patrick, City have reinforced this winter window. Omar Marmoush from Frankfurt, we spoke at length about him. Kusanov from Lens as well. Pep has pinpointed the positions where he needs.
Pep knows how to move his stuff.
He does.
Of course. Do you think that gives City the energy they need though? Maybe a little added boost at least.
It's tricky.
You guys don't seem sold on that at all.
At the end of the day, Pep is not on the field, so it's up to
That's right. Good point.
The thing
Good
is,
point.
I just don't. I don't see them.
Yeah.
I have to really give the edge to Madrid.
Yeah.
Just because Madrid, I think once they always reach the knockout stages, it feels like that's when they really turn on and show up. I think this is gonna be no different. I don't feel like they're too worried right now. I can't even really say that because it's
They will be. They will be. I mean, City, like we said, they haven't been the City of old.
Still a big matchup,
right.
But I think they're going to be more confident than City will be against Real Madrid.
Yeah.
They're going to be confident, but I feel like anything can happen. Because having a striker such as Haaland that's over 6 feet, if he jumps...
It's over. There's no stopping him.
He scored a header at the Emirates.
You have to watch out for corner kicks for sure.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think, look, these are the last 2 champions of the Champions League, right? The past 2 years. And it's interesting to see this matchup so early on. It's not even the round of 16 yet. And we're seeing these 2 titans come together. One of them is going to make an early exit. And if I had to put my money on one of them advancing, it has to be Real Madrid at the moment. Mbappe, Rodrigo, Jude, Vinny, obviously. Valverde. On paper, this team, even though they haven't been at their best this season, they're still top of La Liga. We can't forget that.
Yes.
But these matches, man, every single time they come
There's always
up against each other, we don't know what's going to happen.
I feel like this would have been a good final, and it sucks that these two great teams are facing off in a knockout round and not the final.
Yeah.
But there's a pro to that as well, right? This new format, getting these big teams up against each other early, right? And we saw that a bit in the group phase as well. But this is definitely the biggest example of that so far.
It's not even round of 16. It's make it to the round of 16. Exactly. That's the crazy part.
Exactly. Yeah. Enough on that. Let's let that rest. Of course, it's going to be in a week or so time. Patrick, you are invested in this one, although you're wearing the arch nemesis. We don't talk about that. Sporting Dortmund, a Ruben Amorim less. Sporting and a Nuri Sahin less Dortmund. So these two teams,
it is going to be an interesting
struggling
matchup
this year so far.
Yeah, especially Dortmund domestically, they're not good.
No,
right now they're not good. Champions League, they're doing fine. I mean, they weren't far off from making it to the top 8. Not far off, but still maybe not as good as they would have hoped. But man, this is also one of those really weird, awkward phases for both sides.
I agree.
Amorim leaving Sporting, Sahin not doing good in Germany. He gets the boot out of there. First leg away in Portugal for Dortmund. I can't say I'm confident.
I don't think either of these teams can be confident.
The thing is, if there's one player in this matchup that I can think about immediately, it's going to be Gyökeres.
Oh, of course.
And it's almost like that's scary by itself.
Yeah, and Sporting almost, felt the cost of that because he didn't play against Bologna.
Yeah.
In match day 8, they finished with a 1-1 in that game, and they were very close to not making it out.
Close.
Very close to getting eliminated there. But Gyökeres this season, he started off hot. I feel like, of course, when Sporting beat City, right? 4-1, he came alive. He was a monster in that one, hat-trick. But I think he's kind of started to cool off a little bit. The start of the season was so outrageous.
For sure. And I think that could go definitely in Dortmund's favor right now. And honestly, I don't know. This is going to be a hard one. I feel like
you could say that about all the knockout rounds.
For sure, but I think this was definitely one of the weirder ones in that sense.
Are you leaning towards anyone, Juan?
I feel like I'm going to lean more towards Dortmund.
Ooh, okay.
Sure. I think so.
I mean, they finished higher.
I think, to be fair, Dortmund have done better in Europe this year than domestically.
I feel like
I think it's almost a different story. Even though they finished 10th in the league phase table, I think it's a bit of a different story.
But I feel like season in, season out, we see a different Dortmund in the Champions League for whatever reason. In the Bundesliga, they have underperformed, I guess is the word. Leverkusen, of course, taken over that, second spot in Germany in terms of name and in terms of stature.
Level,
of course, they won the Bundesliga last season, but Dortmund are usually Bayern's contenders. But, recently they have, kind of dropped off from that pedestal. But yeah, I mean, do you have a preference in this one?
I'm gonna stick with Dortmund.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, why not? Why not? Difficult one to call.
Another exciting matchup though, Milan and Feyenoord.
Yes, we touched on this earlier.
Of course. Going back to here, Santi Jimenez leaving Feyenoord now, joining Milan. Now he's gonna face Feyenoord.
Yeah.
How is this gonna play out for both sides now?
I mean, Feyenoord. It's interesting because they finished with a -3 goal difference. So, looking at that on paper, you'll say, oh, they're a bit, fortunate to make it into the playoffs. But, Milan, like we talked about, they're not the Milan of old, right? They're not the big, fierce Milan.
No.
We saw a managerial change there as well. Sergio Fonseca is now in there. But yeah, Juan, what are we saying? Do you think Milan are favorites?
I think Milan because of the whole thing with Santi Jimenez. It gives Milan an advantage.
That's the big storyline.
It gives Milan an advantage because Santi Jimenez knows now that he's played with players from on the other side. He knows the strategies that they're gonna use. So I feel like he's gonna take that to the advantage for him and Milan.
That can definitely help Milan in this one. Of course, they lost to Zagreb. Shockingly, right? Yeah. I mean, away at Zagreb, it's a difficult place to play. But they went in there. They beat Real Madrid, of course, at the Bernabeu. You know that all very well, Juan. Milan, that was a shocking win, right? No one expected that.
I was never expecting that. Never.
Right?
No, I don't think
Pulisic got a goal in that game, didn't he? I believe so. Or an assist. He was involved. He was involved.
But if anything, for me, my GOAT Pulisic, he was going to save the day. He was going to send Milan through. I love that, man. So I'm gonna give Milan the edge here for sure.
Yeah, why not?
They'll
Why
get
not?
it done.
It's Feyenoord are going to be stern opposition again. It's kind of like a PSV Juve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Italy against Netherlands. It's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top. There are 4 more that we don't have to that we don't have the time to go in depth on, but let's give our quick thoughts on them. Brest, PSG, an all Ligue 1 matchup. We saw this actually play out last weekend. PSG getting the job done. Surely PSG,
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
yeah.
the end of the road for Brest here.
Yeah, and I mean, I hope not because I'm a PSG hater. So I want Brest to. But it's just like.
Realistically.
Yeah. Especially with Dembélé, he's really turned up this year.
Yes, he
so
is.
I do think PSG are going to go through it on that one. Club Brugge, Atalanta. I'm going to give it to Atalanta.
Yeah,
I mean,
but it's another one of those. It's like not
but
really
I mean,
guaranteed.
Atalanta, they just barely
That
missed
was like
out.
50-50. I feel like that one can go both ways.
It could.
I do think Atalanta have the advantage going
Yeah.
into that. Monaco Benfica.
That's
a
That one is
Sporting
something.
Dortmund, isn't it?
That feels like it,
Yeah.
right? It's one of those where you just can't really tell. Oh, I don't know.
I feel like that one could go to penalty.
It
That's
could.
not- that's not a
It
great-
could.
I
It could. I don't
realistically
yeah.
see this going into extra time second game for
extra
sure.
time.
Yeah, for sure. And then Munich, Celtic.
I mean, I think that's a done deal.
Done deal.
yeah.
Done deal. I think Celtic, look, 21st, just ahead of City, just 1 point
But
ahead
like
of
this
City.
is like as far as you see them go. Realistic.
Yeah.
They always make it like just shy of getting out of the group, or if they get out of the group, they get knocked out right away.
Yeah,
So
easily.
I think this is as far as this is the end of the road for them
And
as well.
Bayern, along with City and Real Madrid, another one of those big names who
little
cannot
bit.
crack the top 8.
Yeah.
And this season under company, I mean, they've done okay. They have the lead in the Bundesliga, which is expected.
Expected.
But I mean, Celtic, this is a must-win for Bayern. I mean, they cannot slip up.
Surely not, right?
Surely not.
Surely.
Not. Let's not jinx it for Bayern. Maybe the fact that you're wearing their shirt.
I think
Maybe there's an upset somewhere
I
there.
I think I'm good at jinxing things, so I think it's a good thing I'm actually wearing this now that I think about
All
it.
right, boys. Well, that is it for episode 3 of HTFC. Patrick,
Yes.
as always, thank you very much. Juan, your
you so
HTFC
much.
debut. I hope you enjoyed it. Tune in next week, though. We have so much more from the football world to look back on and, of course, to look forward to. So, from us here in the studio, see you next week.